Hey everyone, Mr. Ferens here. Today we're going to be looking at how to rearrange equations. Even though we're going to be using our algebra skills, these are skills we're going to use every single day in physics because so much of physics has to do with these equations where they're supposed to work in as many different situations as possible. So we may not always have numbers to plug in. When you look at a physics equation, you're just going to see a bunch of variables, and we still need to be able to move those around and try and isolate the one that we're trying to solve for. So let's get down to it. Now, when you learn about how to do this in algebra class, you talk about order of operations, right? That goes in order here, top to bottom, PEMDAS. With rearranging equations, the trick to doing it is actually to go in reverse order. To start with addition and subtraction and then work your way up. The way I like to think of it is that we're trying to solve, we're looking at the variable we're trying to solve for. We're looking at what's being done to it, and then we're undoing that. So let's take a look at our first very simple, straightforward example. This is Ohm's Law, talking about voltage and current and resistance, but we'll deal with that later. Right now, let's just look at it in terms of variables. We're trying to rearrange this to find R. What that means is we want to get to a point where we have R equals something. At that point, then we could go and plug in numbers for the specific situation. But what we need to do first is get R all by itself on one side of the equal sign. So look at R in this equation. Look at what's being done to it. It's being multiplied by I. So we need to undo that. The opposite of multiplication is division. So all we need to do is divide both sides by I. What that will give us is R equals V divided by I. That's it. That's our answer. It may not have that sort of nice, neat, like, oh, R equals 3 or whatever, but this is what we're looking for. We can take this equation, involve any situation with circuits, and we can plug numbers in for V and I, and we can get the answer that we're looking for. Let's try one that's a little more complicated. This is looking for the area of, I think it's a trapezoid. I don't remember my geometry equations off the top of my head. But what we're trying to look for here is B1. Now be very, very careful, because we have two different B variables. We have B1 and B2. These are not the same variables, so we can't just write B because they're not necessarily going to be equal to each other. Again, we're solving this for B1, which means that we want to get the equation where B1 equals something, something, something. That 1 and 2, by the way, these are called subscripts. They show up all the time in physics. So that's why I'm giving it to you now so you can get comfortable working with this. Again, order of operations, or rather reverse order of operations. We have B1 is in parentheses, but we need to save that for last. So the first thing we do is that it's being multiplied by H, and it's being multiplied by 1/2. I think the first thing that we want to do is get rid of that 1/2. And so what we can do to cancel that out is to multiply both sides of the equation by 2. That's going to give us 2A equals H times B1 plus B2. Now, there are a couple different ways we can do this. We can do 2A over H. There are, like I said, there are many, many different ways. So there's no one single correct way to solve this equation. However you're doing it is fine. So I think the best way, or I think the easiest way for my brain to do this, is to distribute the H through these parentheses. So that becomes 2A equals HB1 plus HB2. Now we've gotten rid of the parentheses. So we look at what's being done to B1. It's being added to this other term. So what we can actually do is subtract that, bring it over to the other side of the equation, and we get 2A minus HB2 equals HB1. Finally, we see that B1, which is the thing, right, that's our goal, it's being multiplied by H. So all we need to do is multiply or excuse me, not multiply. We need to divide. We need to do the opposite. Divide both sides of this equation by h. And we end up getting that b1 is equal to 2a minus hb2 over h. Now, maybe you did this in a slightly different order and you got 2a over h minus b2. You can simplify it a couple of different ways. That's not I'm not going to be super picky about that. It's not really as important because if we have numbers that we can plug in for a and h and b2, we're going to get the same answer either way. So either way you write it, this is correct. And that's it. So remember, just order of operations, do the reverse, find your variable that you're trying to solve for, and then undo what's being done to it. Good luck. Let me know if you have any questions.